Welcome back to Trios, everyone. We have special guest Jenna George here, author Jenna George here with us today. We're going to be talking about novels, book writing, and everything else in between. How are you doing, Jenna?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so the first question I always like to ask anybody is how would you introduce yourself to somebody, a random stranger on the street? I don't know, maybe a first date or something. What do you say to people? Like, who are you when you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm very outgoing, first of all, so there's usually not a lapse in conversation. Sometimes I don't know when to stop talking, but I think I'm a caring, compassionate person. I love to get to know people and talk, and yeah, just that's about it.
Perfect. Well, you were well, you're in the perfect place in the treehouse because that's all we're to do here. So you are an author, is that correct? You are a writer, and you wrote your first novel, "Breaking Our Trees." Is that correct?
I did. Wow, I'm so glad you have it.
Yeah, I was excited when I got it, and you took this photograph of the cover. If I remember you correct, you told me.
My sister
Yeah,
did. I'll give my sister the props, but yeah, it's a photograph, except the bird is photoshopped in.
that's right. That is right. I read it. I liked it. How long has this book been out for?
April 1st, it came out,
April 1st. Cool. So
and
just
then it
about
came out on Kindle on June 3rd.
okay. No, I read it. I liked it a lot. And we'll talk about some questions I have
All
for you
right.
with it. But also we'll go through some things I was curious about. And I think a lot of writers when they're writing these things, they can take away a lot from writing your first novel because this was a huge. How long did it take you to write this from
So the
idea?
whole the whole process was about a year and a half. But the first draft actually only took me 26 days. So I was so into it and so excited. I mean, I literally woke up, I wrote, I ate, I went to sleep, I wrote more. Like it was just all I wanted to do during that first draft was write constantly.
Yeah, like every minute, I feel that, like, especially when you get the momentum and that you have to capture that lightning when it
Oh yeah,
strikes, because you have to really ride it out. I think there was a
exactly.
new comic book, the story that I wrote within like one day, or I think it was like 3 days really, but like everything was set in that first day. All these ideas when they start coming, they
So
don't
you knew
stop.
exactly where you were going with it and you got there.
Absolutely. So first thing is the cover, Jenna. All right, breaking the threes. First of all, you can get this right now on Amazon. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Awesome.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, my website.
Oh man, we'll show it all towards the end. But yeah, so the cover, breaking and the name of breaking the trees. I don't know why, but I thought this book was a lot different than what it was.
So
Which
what did you think?
I don't know if it was good or bad, but I thought I thought it was gonna be them in the woods running away. I'll keep it spoiler free as possible from the killer. And I thought they were gonna spend like all of it, like it'll be like a Hunger Games type scenario. But
That'd be
yeah,
cool.
so I'm curious. Yeah, and even like from the what's it called, the little summer synopsis. I was curious, what made you like change it? And like when you talk about plot twists or leading the story, how did you like? What did you think about from that beginning to where it ended up going in like the first few chapters, like this?
So before I started writing, I knew how I wanted it to end.
Hmm.
And I almost was more unsure of how I wanted to get there, like how I wanted to get to the end, but I had a pretty clear vision of how I wanted the end to go. So I mean, throughout, because I did 10 drafts of it, like over the year and a half process. And I will say, like, a lot changed. I mean, chapters are in there now that weren't in there for the first 7, 8, 9 drafts, or some that,
Okay.
were in it throughout the whole time, disappeared, when I finally published the book. So it was a lot of trial and error. And it was just basically how I thought the best way to get to the end. That's kind of where I went with it.
That makes good sense. Yeah, I think I would have liked them to be more in the forest. I don't know why. Feels like
I'm sorry.
it would just might be me personally. I don't know.
Not
But
really. That was like a beginning and end
yeah,
type
it was like
thing.
that. What is it called? A sandwich when they.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, I mean, and then I would say that the question about you said that you had chapters that came in at towards the end. Where did the prologue come in from? Did you come up with a? Was it always meant to be there, or was it done afterwards?
The
Yeah.
prologue was actually the first thing I did.
Okay.
But I will like the initial prologue was not a prologue, it was a chapter 1,
Okay.
and it was like 20 pages. It was like the length of a normal chapter. And my cousin actually, she's a very good writer herself, and she helped a lot with the process. So after draft 1, the prologue was like not the prologue, chapter 1, and she told me she thought that I put too much detail into the killer's life in the beginning, and she almost thought it should be more obscure. So I kind of
Right.
thought about it a little bit, and I liked that. I liked the readers not knowing too much more than the characters in the book.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
now it's super short. It's only like 3, 4, 5 maybe pages. But I did that changed a lot. That was one of those things where it changed quite a bit. It's really interesting to go back to old drafts and see what it used to be.
Yes, Raven Orphelia. Am I getting that right?
Mhm.
Awesome, awesome. I remember things, Jordan, Jenna. I remember that. But yeah, that was cool. A lot of times I see people do prologues, and I like it because it was like short, it gets to the point, and then it also introduces the main character or characters,
Mhm.
I guess. Where a lot of times prologues don't do that. I think that's the biggest mistake. Um, so that's cool. And one of the other things was, that was the beginning, but then ending it. How do you end this story? And the way it read out to me was like, and something that happens to me all the time, is where it feels like there are multiple last chapters here, where it's like, did you like come up with the last chapter and then you want to add more to the end? Is that kind of what happened?
So
Or
I don't want to say like too much, but
Mhm.
about like the I don't know, 3rd, maybe 4th to last chapter when everything went down kind of in the
Right.
forest. That was like the ending that I had, and like I knew that I wanted that chapter to happen, but I also knew that I wanted to satisfy readers beyond that and give
Mhm.
them a little bit more to kind of hold on to. I didn't want to just like end there and end abruptly. I wanted
Right.
to tie up all loose ends and answer any questions that might not have been answered earlier. So there were a couple that like I know one actually was added right before I published. So like draft 10, I added like that super short chapter, A Look from
Mhm.
Within. That was
Okay.
not there before. But so like there was just a few loose ends I feel like I needed to tie up. So that's why there's some extras at the end.
Yeah, no, it felt like there were like multiple endings. I was like, "What is happening?" But I liked it. I liked it. Um, yeah, I think to me, was it a break in the trees? Was that supposed to be the last chapter, or was that just was one
That
after
was like I would say the climax.
the climax?
I would so yeah, I would say that chapter was definitely like the climax of the story. And then I just wanted to leave people on a little bit of a better note than just end it right there.
Right, right. I agree with that. No, no, that was a cool way to kind of end it, and I think you know we talk about who probably did it best is George R. R. Martin. And he says, "Kill your darlings, kill your characters," and that's what you did. Try to be as spoiler free as possible. Like like what was your thought process behind that, and how do you choose who to kill of your character?
So a spoiler alert. I have a little bit to say about this. Um this was tough for me. Now,
Mhm,
if it were if I mean it was up to me, but if I could have found the way to kill Everly, I would have.
mhm.
But I found it really complex to do that because it was kind of from her eyes. So I wasn't really sure how to do it. And based on trauma that the other characters had been through, like their families had been through, that's how I chose the character I chose.
Got it. Got
Does
it.
that make sense?
It does make sense to me. And one of my favorite parts probably was that goodbye letter to that character,
You
to
liked it?
yeah, I liked it. I enjoyed it because it really, got to I think it wrapped up the story nicely. It also was like a nice goodbye to him. And not only his character, but of course the story that their experience together. And it also wrapped up that chapter of their lives, right? And then it really moved the story forward.
Yeah, it did.
So that was a cool part. And then again, it's one of those things where yeah, I think you need to kind of let go of your characters that you've made. Was that tough for you? Like, were you like, I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
want to?
Oh, yeah. That was that so there was like maybe 2 or 3 sentences at the end of that chapter, um, and it probably took me like an hour at least to just write those 3 sentences and just, like, figure out exactly, like, the verbiage I wanted to use. It was really challenging because I don't know, I felt there was a lot of pressure there. I
Yes, yes.
wanted it to satisfy people, but I also wanted it to be a little emotional. I it was very and I didn't wanna let him go. So
Mhm.
it was definitely a challenging thing to do.
Just to make some crossover here, there was actually I know exactly what you're saying because I had to choose the very last words for Elixir the same way because she's saying goodbye, and to make it emotional. But it's also the way you're saying the words and the syntax and choosing it very precisely. So I know exactly what you mean. Um, but uh, you talk about letters. You also had a letter for Raven Orphelia, which I thought was also really interesting. I was like, so what are you like? Where do you get these ideas to like write these letters? Like, where did that come from?
I'm a letter type of girl, I think. I mean, I always write letters to people. I think birthdays, holidays, um, when I find that something is harder to say out loud,
Mm,
I tend to write it down, and sometimes I mean, I've been the type of person to write a letter and throw it in a fire. I mean, it's like a release thing, like, you can't actually give it to this person. There are things you wanna say to them, but, like, you never actually would, and there's a bonfire in the backyard, so you go get the letter and throw it in. I mean, I've always found it easier to express and verbalize my emotions while writing, so I don't know, I kinda put a little bit of that, like, from me into the
mhm.
story.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, we can be pen pals, Jenna.
Let's do
I,
it.
you know what? So I think I actually sent you a letter
Oh,
in
you did?
the
I still
book.
have it. It was so cute.
So it's funny that you brought that up. But yeah, I'm kind of the same way. But when it's important, I think people like when you have something to say that's important. I think it comes across a lot, that much more, with feeling in a letter, a handwritten letter. And that's why I do it. It's not, my handwriting is not the best,
Mhm.
but it takes so much time. But I do it to the people, that I think, matter and I care about. I do it a lot to some of my really good friends in the community when they support and back the book, and they're big voices. But yeah, I think it's something we need to do more of, definitely
I
more letters. And
agree.
that's what it made me think of when I was reading these. It also gets you into the head. You were talking about you want to make this the killer kind of obscure, but we also got in their head at that tiny bit at the end, and I thought that was a cool.
And yeah, that's kind of it's like I felt like there was a lot of questions like on her end that needed to be answered. And I kind of sat down for a little bit and thinking, what is the best way to verbalize to readers what she did. And then I thought, okay, I'm the author. If I want to put a chapter in her head, I can do that.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I thought it was fitting because she was all alone to just like write it all out. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's just a me thing, but I thought it was good then.
No, it was great. I liked it. I mean, I don't know where you took inspiration, but I immediately thought of Albert Camus' *The Stranger*. Have you read this before? Or
No.
Lolita by Nabokov's Lolita? These are just random novels, but they have it where these guys are criminals, and they're like ending their jail sentence or they're going to jail, and then they write this letter. And I think it was like sometimes it either starts or ends the stories, and it was really cool. It was a good way to kind of get in their head for just that tiny little glimmer. And
We
yeah,
should, you
what
should
if
send me the links to those. Those sound good.
absolutely. Oh, these are classics. These are like these are. I'll send you the names of these books. I think you like them. I read them back in high school, but
Yeah, I've never even heard of them, to be honest
Really?
with you.
Oh
Were they
man.
like in like your curriculum in high school, or you just read them for
No,
fun?
no, these I read them in for AP English. I read them.
So
They're
they're in the
so
curriculum.
yeah, so they're in the curriculum, but they were like really classic. They're like old school classics.
Okay.
So yes and no, but I will also say that one of my favorite things about this book in particular, and what made them feel real, was the friend group, right? And you had banter that was good that I liked, but then to go on the opposite end of that, I felt like there might have been too many characters or too many main characters.
You
How do you
think?
feel about that, Jenna? Has anybody ever told you
No.
that?
Not yet. Um, like too many, like amongst the four, or like too many extra
Yeah, I think I'm
side
like for but just the fact, and I do understand that it was plot driven, so it definitely helped. But sometimes when I was reading it, I was kind of, especially in the beginning, I was kind of like, oh, who are these people again? But then, of course, when you get through like in the middle of the book, you kind of understand. I was curious about about introducing characters, kind of like makes me think of Game of Thrones. How a lot of people had trouble in the first season
so
because
much
there's just
trouble.
so many characters coming at you, and then it took
So
me
much trouble.
rewatching like two or three times throughout the second, and then it wasn't until the second season where I actually understood
Oh,
who
for
everybody
sure. And
was.
then the second season starts and they're introducing more characters.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like, what the
So,
heck?
so of course not on that scale, but I think that's why a lot of books, or especially in any story, they have one main character, right? Um, and this kind of reminded me of kind of like Archie. I don't know if you watch Riverdale or any of the
Yeah,
Archie
not really, but I know the concept.
concept. So yeah, there's four people there, a friend
Oh
group,
yeah.
and it
And
kind
he's
of
just kind of like through his eyes.
So yeah, I mean that was just one of the things that in terms of introducing characters, because you just introduce them all in like one. I think they went to the apartment right after or something, or I
It
mean
was all
yeah,
within that first chapter. I mean, you didn't meet them all at once. Like they each came in at a different time, but yeah,
mhm,
it was within that first chapter.
right, right. No, just something to think about. I'm just throwing random
Hey,
things
I'll
out
keep it
there.
in mind. I'm all here for
It was
criticism.
just a note I wrote. Let me see else. Um, Yeah, another thing is this book is, there's a lot of pages here. There's 311 pages, 311 pages. I was curious, and it was because towards the middle, and I was curious about like how you come up with your chapters breakdowns. Like what makes you decide if a chapter should be there or not?
So I actually initially, I think there's 20, what is there, 22, 23 chapters now, something like that.
Yeah.
But initially there was like 10, but it was the
Okay.
same length. The book was the same length. And I
Right.
had very specific visions
First of
in
all,
my
did you
head,
just ask
like,
me how many chapters there are?
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
I don't know. It's something like that. I don't
I
even
think
know.
yeah, there was I think 21 in an epilogue, so 22.
Yeah.
Plus the
Yeah.
prologue is 23. Yes.
Yeah. There you go. So thank you. um, But yeah, so I had very specific visions about, like, okay, for example, the Chicago chapter. In my head, I was like, oh, this all has to get done in one chapter. And then I'm going through, I think it's like draft 5, 6, 7, something like that. I'm like, this is ridiculously long. It made it hard for me to go through and edit it. And I'm thinking to myself,
Mhm.
oh, readers not gonna want to read 30, 35, 40-page chapters, because I know I don't. Like I know when
Yeah.
I'm reading a book, to this day, like I'm so much more inclined to read another chapter if it's 10, 12 pages opposed to
Yeah.
25, 30. So I went through after, like, I don't know, I think it was like draft 5 or 6, and I broke them up. And then I continued to break them up even more until my last draft, because I kept finding places where I'm like, oh, this chapter can easily end here. And then if the next one's only 8 pages, great, whatever. It's just it doesn't matter. There's no, like, it doesn't
Right.
have to be a certain length. So yeah, that was kind of my mentality. Um, I went against what I initially believed because I figured in the end it'd be better for the story.
Right. Right. Another thing, and this is just me not really knowing about novels. Is this like, was this a long novel? Like, or is this like, where does it range in terms
No,
of
I feel like it's pretty average, pretty standard.
average?
Yeah, it might
Like
even be a
usually,
little shorter than most. Uh,
really? Okay.
no, I feel like it's pretty standard.
Pretty standard.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely not
okay.
longer than most.
Got it, got it. Because all I remember is that John Green had like 200 pages. So that was way back when. That was what I was used to. So it's been definitely been a while. You got me back into reading books, Jenna. You know what I'm saying? That
Really?
goes, yeah, yeah. It's the
I
first
really
book
hope
I've read.
you liked it
Yeah, I did. I did.
overall.
Of course, I did. It was. I liked it better after I met you. I, you know what I'm saying. I felt like I read it. That was the reason that got me into it. But yeah, I think I'm getting back into reading more. I don't know when the next book I'll read is. Depends on when your next book is coming out, Jen. That'll be the next book I read.
Give me a year. Give me a year.
All right. All right. But yeah, so that was and the last thing is this was something I was curious about, and this is the first thing I noticed about this book, and I felt it immediately after I read the prologue.
You're making me
And
nervous.
oh yeah, yeah, no, it was about the motive. It was about the motive, and and I don't want to. I guess I have a few questions, but and I guess we can say because it's in the first chapter or first prologue, but she murders somebody because she's being cheated on, and it's for me personally, I don't know if that motive was strong enough, Jenna.
I think
Um,
it was more it what I guess I tried to portray that she was just seriously, seriously messed up. Like
okay,
the whole purpose is like, yeah, no, that's not a good motive. Like
okay,
there
got
is
it.
no, I mean, there really is never a good motive to kill someone, but like that
Right,
just like truly shows that she is like a
but she's
sociopath.
just
Like
like crazy or
she is
something. Okay,
literally crazy, and that's kind of what I wanted to portray. Like she will go to any lengths and kill whoever she needs to kill. She'll look for an excuse along the way. She doesn't care. So it was more just to show like, wow, she is nuts.
got it, got it. Well, that cleared some things up. That made me like it even more. But yeah, that's what
I hope
that's
so.
what that's what stuck with me. I was like, oh man. But yeah, overall, it was a good book, and I think you had some nice last words, acknowledgments. Thank you to all those, and then you list a bunch of Georges. Are these
I
all
do.
your family?
That is my immediate family. They all read it prior to publishing,
Mhm.
and just supported me throughout the process. They knew how challenging and strenuous it was on me, and their support meant the world to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then you even wrote a letter yourself at the end of this book, which I thought was hilarious. I was like, you
I
really put
told
it to
you I
these
like
letters.
letters.
Yeah. Oh, I believe it now. There was like two letters in the book from character, then you had one. But yeah, I agree. I agree. You said something nice. It was like, there's something so sacred, that this was being put out into the world, for the world to see, and it terrified you. Does it? Do you still feel that way? And like, has the response been good? Like, are you glad that you were able to be vulnerable, put it out there?
Yeah, I'm definitely glad. I'm definitely glad, but I'm still terrified, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like I have gotten very positive feedback and it's been a really rewarding experience. And I've gotten some not so positive feedback, but that was, the best
Yeah,
intentions from people who were giving it to
right,
me, which I appreciate. I just of course this is my first novel, like excuse me.
right.
I hope the next one's better and I hope the one after that's better. I hope I only improve.
Mhm.
But the idea of it still terrifies me. But I'm really glad I did it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. I think we're gonna hopefully we get a lot more fans for you. Get them getting this book. That's for sure. We said Amazon, right? It's on
Amazon, Barnes& and
Amazon.
Noble, and my website.
A break in the trees. Perfect. And while I pull this up, is there any question you have for me about your reading of Elixir? That was
I have a question about the art.
okay.
So you obviously someone drew like was the artist for you, correct?
Yes.
Did
His name is
you like
Pat.
sit and meet with this person? Did you visualize these characters in your head before? How did that work? Like did you have certain images in your head of what these
Um,
people looked like?
yes. So, of what these people look like, yeah, yes, and no. So for the monsters, I had some semblance, and we definitely met. So this is Pat Kwan is the artist. He's actually, we do a live show, I think I told you, and he's always there. So we definitely connected. He lives in Florida, but we do a lot of these meetings. And there was a lot of meetings before we obviously got started, about the main character, who we wanted to portray, as, strong monster hunter type. But then the world surrounding him was just wacky and crazy and like magical. So there was a lot of monster designs, and a lot of the times there was, a lot of, you know there's a lot of steps to get to where it got, character design wise. But yeah, it was a lot of back and forth thinking of, what do we like here and there. There's actually, kind of not really a spoiler, but Cyrus kind of, he has like a monster, persona design, and coming up with that was probably the hardest. And that's, I think we might have went through like 20 different designs to get to where
Wow.
it finally ended up with. So to answer is like, it's like, yes, it starts off like having some idea, but then you work on it once you see it, and then you kind of tinker with it along the way and fix it. But yeah, and it's something that, that's generally just how art works. I would say that a lot of the cool ideas about like the angels and demons, we wanted to make it's like different and unique. Even like the
Right.
devil in here, we wanted to make him a whole new kind of, just interesting take on him.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that was, a lot of the designs were definitely, I would say, more, on the artist end, and then we just kind of fixed it along the way, basically. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's just something that I feel like I always think about. Like I have images in my head of like the characters in A Break in the Trees, and I have no it's just so interesting because I have no idea if I sat down with an artist and they took the descriptions from the book, like I feel like they just like look entirely different from the way I see them in my head. So I was just wondering if that was like a like if you visualized them, monsters, people, whatever,
Mhm.
prior to having the artist draw them for you.
Oh yeah, and that's, that's why, writing in comics is a little different, a little more challenging. Not challenging. It's a different kind of
It's
aspect,
yeah, it's definitely different.
because you definitely need to, think about and tell the artist kind of how to set up the page and how to set up the characters to interact with each other, and also the designs, if you so choose. But it's, well, I guess I have one question. Would you now be interested in doing a comic book after you said this was your first comic book? Is that correct that you
Mhm.
read, or?
Yep. Would I be
Uh,
interested in writing one?
well, did you like them? Were you going to read more? That's the next question, Jenna.
I'll read more of yours.
All right.
And maybe from there I'll read more. I don't know.
Okay. What did you think of the story? And how, like, because it's almost like watching a cartoon or something, right? Or an animated series or a movie. It's more so like that because you can see things play out visually, and then people are talking. What do you think of it compared
I'll be
to?
honest with you. I mean I when I tell you I had never picked up a comic book in my life, I like 100% meant it. And there were points where I was like, what do I read first? Like what
Oh,
or like I had to like stop, and this is again like I'm a major rookie. Like this is probably like not a common thing. Um but I definitely had to like stop and think. I'm like, wait, where am I at right now?
okay.
I mean, seriously. Um,
That's a good point. And it is something that I would say left to right, top to down. And a lot of times, like I got into comic books recently as well. But after you read them, you do pick up on where things are, the flow of things go. And sometimes it's weird because there'll be double page spreads and people will read left to right across the whole page. So so definitely you're not the only one there. And a
okay,
lot of
good. That
times,
makes me feel. I was like, do I say that out loud or do I not? I was like, you know what? This is an honest place. I'm just gonna say
it's a safe space in the treehouse, that's for sure.
it.
But yeah, I'm glad you liked it. Did you were you able to understand the story? Do you think it was so wacky and wild? Because that's what I
I
was trying to
think
do.
I think it was definitely different. But I think I need to read it again, to be honest
Hmm.
with you. I
Okay.
think now maybe I can read it more cohesively. I'm telling you, I there was a few pages where I was really like I had to read some pages like 3 times in a different order, and I'm trying to figure I don't know if I, like, sound like a major idiot for that, but, like, seriously, I this is a totally new concept for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's actually very um, intriguing and different, and I like it. It's like an excuse as an adult to read a picture book.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
think that's really cool. And I can definitely see myself reading more and more. I mean, I like this kind of thing too, just like totally like fantasy, not necessarily in the realm of possibility. And I,
Yes,
I like that. It's a different type of escape from reality.
exactly. Did you also just call us adults? We're still kids, Jenna. We're still
Okay, you're
kids.
right.
Yeah, well, so, but yeah, no, I'll definitely be eager to hear any other questions or thoughts you have after you read it a second time. This, for people to know, this took me and Pac about 2.5 years to make
I
and
was just
finally
gonna
launch
ask
it.
you actually.
So it definitely is a labor of love. I'm sure, as you know, making your book. But it's also, Pac had to spend so many hours drawing this book. So you have to really believe, when you pair an artist, you have to make sure that they really believe in the project and they believe in you, because then, they spend so much time to finish these things. So yeah.
I think the most
Um,
important thing for the both of us is that we are proud of our end result. Are you
that is
proud?
right. I am proud. and
Good.
uh, and again, I just started this year. I think the same with you, or we both launch our books this year. And yeah, I'm excited for where the future's going. I have a new story. That's a love letter to New York City coming out next month,
Ooh, that
or
sounds
2 weeks
fun.
actually. And
What's that about?
that's like that's gonna be an all ages one, a little bit of magic, but not really. And that's a little more fun and lighthearted than like these fantasy, mature wild stories. So yeah, I'm excited for that, and also made me think about kind of how you set breaking the trees in Chicago. It's like, yeah, you write not only what you know, but you write about the places you want to talk about that you grew up with, and you want to kind of give back in your way and continue telling their stories.
Right.
So that's what Rush New York City is about. It's about the hustle bustle nature of New York. Have you ever been to New York, Jenna?
Once, but I was 14, 15, 16. I'm going this summer though.
What? Where are you going? This summer? It's already summer.
I know. Well, yeah, I'm going in July. It's like, so I'm doing a road trip, like an upper East Coast kind of road trip, and I will be in New York City for a day. So I'll hit you up.
guess guess we're meeting up for that one day.
Let's do
That's
it.
gonna be awesome. Yeah, absolutely. I'll clear my schedule, Janet, just for you. But yeah,
Yes.
that'd be very cool. I was in Chicago about 2 summers ago, and I had their deep dish pizza. That was a fun
From
thing.
where?
I was I was like right in the middle of the city. I don't know exactly where, but
Do you remember the pizza place?
Umberto's. Does that make sense? No,
I've never
did I
heard of
just
it.
make up? I just make that up. I don't know. I couldn't tell you, Chad.
All right, I forgive you. I am excited for New York style pizza, I'll tell you that much.
Oh, so where are you going for this trip, by the way? Are you just going? Are you just looping?
Yeah, so we're gonna go up through like Ohio up to Niagara Falls, like the Syracuse area, and then from Syracuse to like Vermont, New Hampshire, up to Portland,
Hmm.
Maine, and then down to Boston, New Haven, New York City, Allentown, Pennsylvania, and back home.
Are you going to be vlogging any of this, Jenna? Are
Should
you going
I?
to be? I wish that sounds awesome.
So I'm very
uh,
excited. I've only ever
yeah,
been to New York out of all those states, so
right. No, yeah, because I did a road trip from New York to LA a few years ago,
ooh,
and,
fun.
it was about 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks or something. And it was a wild. It was a good time. Got to see a whole, all these different places, meet so many different people, and yeah, I wished I would have like captured a lot more content of it,
Yeah,
because
that's definitely something I have to think about doing. Just get as much footage and photos
yeah,
and anything that I can.
that's right. That is right. So yeah, definitely. You're leaving in a few weeks. You said.
Yeah, July 10th.
July 10th. Oh man, oh man, that's soon. That's soon.
I'll hit you
Um,
up.
any last words you want to tell? Well, you write me a letter and you let me know.
I will. Good call. Um,
um, any last words you want to say to new time writers that you maybe can inspire them, give them a little piece of advice that will keep them going? Because it is a big. I actually started writing down kind of after the last conversation about I wanted to make like a small thing like 3 chapters for an audiobook for one of my comics. And it's tough. It's so tough to even sit down. And I know you gave last time like a website with prompts and stuff, but it's still like a tough thing to do. Any advice you can give to me and other people out there, other writers?
I think as long as you kind of come up, like you could literally come up with like a paragraph. You're like, okay, this is kind of what my problem to be. This is like what I want it to be. I think from there, the best thing to do is create your characters, figure out how many main characters you want, like get to know them yourself, come up with some plot points, like maybe give yourself 9 plot points and know that this is kind of the path you want your story to take. And when you start writing, just write. Like the thing I learned is I had these plot points and my plot points didn't even some of my plot points didn't even make it into my novel.
Mhm.
So I think the story and the characters and everything will kind of just take a mind of its own, take on a mind of its own. And you don't have to worry about like following your plot lines or whatever, like your agenda. It's still going to be your story. And if something that you wrote that you thought you wanted to happen doesn't happen, it's probably not happening for a reason. So like don't beat yourself up. Just write. It's the
So I
best thing.
cannot have said it any better. Just right. Thank you so much for coming on to the Treehouse. It's always good to talk to you, Jenna.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks everybody. I guess the last thing is I forgot to share. Make sure you check out Jenna's book, Breaking the Trees, which is now on Amazon. It's right over here. This is how I got it.
That's the Kindle version, but yes.
Oh, that yes, the Kindle version. And then I
But
think
there's also a regular version on there
there is
somewhere.
the regular version on here. Okay, well, I'm sure people can
Somewhere.
find it. I'll link it down below. Make sure you guys support out Jenna. Thanks, guys, for watching another episode of the 101 Treehouse Session with our special guest, Jenna George. Bye.